Soft.
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 So like hard and gross.
Soft. Soft.
Soft.
Soft material.
My name is 𝘚𝘖𝘍𝘛, and I am based in Miami, Florida. I create self-sculpture. My art practice is sustainable, and I make things out of fused plastic, repurposed hand-dyed textiles.
Hey, my name is Ali Jackson, and I'm a multimedia artist from Austin, Texas. I work in different forms of media, from animation to augmented reality, and most recently some textile work.
Hi, my name is Natalie Toth. I'm a painter based in New Orleans, Louisiana, and my practice currently focuses on found materials and assemblage.
Hi, I'm Jen. I'm from Philadelphia. I make quirky stuff about packing peanuts right now.
I'm Madeline Merrick. I'm from Reston, Louisiana, and I make paintings, textiles, and photographs.
My name is Tuck von Kraska, Tuck Mason von Kraska, and I was born and raised in Bozeman, Montana, and it's where I currently live. And I typically make sculpture, but I'm also a painter.
I'm Steve Kronbach. I live in Austin, Texas. I'm originally from the Netherlands, and I started working in fabric as I was traveling up and down from the Netherlands to America.
Hi, my name is Ellie German. I am from Buenos Aires, Argentina. I moved to Houston in 2014 when I was 14 years old. And now I'm studying art at the University of Texas and graduating in less than a semester. I find that most of my work is more continuous, less on the side of medium, more on the side of the themes that I explore.
I'm April Wright. I'm an interdisciplinary artist working primarily in fibers and paper, sculpturally, working in installation work as well. I usually use discarded materials from every day to talk about home and domesticity, kind of thinking about those moments that are abandoned and then renewed again.
My name's Holly Cool. I'm mostly a textile painter. I work a lot with like optics and the body, the figure. A lot of times sort of, I guess more recently, just working a lot with funky colors and things I can get to look really strange, and I guess anything that's hard to focus on. Things that don't typically go together or feel weird when they're sat beside each other. That's something I'm really interested in.
I love using material that's kind of crafty and not traditionally used in the arts, or not like valued as like high-end material or high-end techniques, like quilting. I love quilting, and I'm really into expansion foam, and I like to really translate that kind of mediums and kind of make them seem unexpected and unrecognizable.
And I was given this opportunity to work with discarded materials that have been donated to the fiber department at University of Kentucky, and I really took advantage of that. There was a lot of bandages and stretched cotton linen, which is in the work that was in one of the works in the show, Night Aggregations, and really responded to like this idea of mending and also tearing at the same time, and kind of things that fall apart and how they kind of come back together in like a broken way.
I just feel like there's a lot of versatility in appearance that can be achieved with textiles as a base, which I'm kind of obsessed with, actually.
So my work isn't always in textiles. I was drawn to it specifically after I took a weaving and dyeing class in Chicago one summer, and we were weaving on the big floor looms. Then we would shibori dye and like, pull all the threads that we were weaving. We would pull them in ways that would make kind of a tie-dye resist. It was a great class, and I just really enjoyed coming from painting, using textiles as like a kind of a more flexible painting surface in a way.
So then I started making clothes for my kids, and I really feel like my art, like the applique part of my work, which a lot of my collage work and my wall art is applique. I feel like it stemmed from making clothes for my kids. So I know. So I started creating just fabric collage with like heavy stitching, and then from my fabric collage, it kind of moved to trapunto, which trapunto is a quilting technique, and my mom actually used to do it when I was a kid. So my parents are very creative. So I kind of just like my work kind of evolved into like this kind of a take on trapunto, like relief sculpture.
I think just like working with something to respond to first and foremost is like just the way that I work, the way my brain works, rather than like directly from scratch, so to speak. And I think I love like finding things, looking for things, saving things, giving things a platform. So my grandmother was actually like kind of she lived in a small town. She was poor, like she didn't have any access to material. So a lot of times she would just kind of like ask her neighbors for yarn or material. Like she would use sort of things on her table and make things for her home. So I always just admired that and kind of wanted to continue that tradition.
I try and kind of like truncate my practice into periods of like collecting and periods of making, so that I have like I like to go probably 2 months where I'm just like amassing things from the garbage and just like collecting all of like the bubble wrap that things I buy comes in, and then just storing it and organizing it. And then it'll get to a point where I'm like, okay, I have so much shit, let me work through this, and then I'll make a body of work from that. But day to day, especially now with the pandemic, my practice is like pretty inconsistent. I don't know, it's really just a matter of like keeping my hands busy at this point.
I use a sewing machine a lot to make sort of like collage textile work. And then I just kind of fell into tufting when quarantine hit, and I was looking for like a new medium that would kind of like give me a little kick, because I feel like new mediums are always really exciting for me, at least. I like the learning process and finding myself a little bit stuck while I'm making art. That's like part of what makes art fun for me.
To be quite honest, what kind of drew me to textiles, I had never really worked in textiles until this past year. And it was like, the height of COVID, I was served an ad for a tufting gun, and I just wanted to kind of like experiment and try something new. And so, I really kind of loved it. Like, what's kind of cool about it is it's almost like very graphic and bold because of like color blocking, different obviously colors and types of yarn. So that was really interesting to me, and yeah, I've kind of loved it ever since. And from then, now I'm trying to figure out like how can I integrate it and like mix it in with more digital things, and kind of like push and pull this like really soft medium into like this hard, cold, digital thing. So that's really interesting to me.
So I started off doing more fabric stuff because I bought a sewing machine during the quarantine, like other people, like older people that kind of get locked out of studio for good. Just kidding, for like solid like 5 months or something. So then I kind of drawn into fabric because glass is like fabric. It's soft and when it's really pliable when it's hot, but you can't really put your hands on it, like duh. then I kind of draw into the intimacy between my hands and the fabric, and kind of like the soft and comfort that's from both like sewing those things together, and like I can cuddle with it afterwards because it's so soft. So it's kind of just like a quarantine experience, but also I kind of want to bring like fabric more to class and just to my work in general.
It's the polar opposite, right? It's like digital, you can't really touch it, you
Yeah.
know, you're like, you experience it visually and, you know, but yeah, there's no like actual like physical thing there. So it's kind of nice to like sometimes work in the physical world versus everything just being on the screen, you know?
So I've been sewing for roughly 12 years, and I honestly like they're really, really forgiving as far as media goes, just because you know, if you're sewing two pieces of fabric together, you get that like 1/4 inch / however big you want to make it of like room to screw up. And that makes it yeah, it's just the low risk, and you can also rip stitches, which is kind of an amazing. I mean, even with welding, you can't do that. It's like, you know, it inherently like changes the materiality of the metal you're working with, and yeah, it's really nice to be able to just like edit and then reattach and then edit and then reattach.
Also, usually I make work based on like whims of ideas. So if I have an idea, I just make random messes and see what's out of it.
I guess my approach to art making is kind of all over the place. I like to learn a lot of new things. So I think like 90% of, maybe 90 is a stretch, 80% of my practice is just like picking up new things and experimenting and playing around with it. Like
A lot of my work kind of deals with those physical and emotional landscapes, and the materials are what's so important, and what I do to them for them to understand the narration. And yeah, I think just to not to give everything away.
I was probably just a little slower, but it gave me the opportunity to like pick those things apart and see the in-between parts. And I think in a way like my work and like how that like is visualized is kind of like that. It's kind of poetic, and it's kind of more like between the lines. It's not a super direct communication. But I don't really mind that, because like I said, I like that it leaves open a little bit of space for other people to like put their own narrative on it as well.
And I think we get into this like really gross habit of like assigning meaning to things, or like demanding meaning from things. And I don't think we actually give especially artwork the chance to kind of be just ambiguously.
And I'm always looking for ways to recreate kind of my experience of my surroundings. I'm always influenced by walks I take or photos I snap really quick on my phone that are these, you know, wayfinding kind of quick entry points into just what's directly around me, right at, you know, my immediate surroundings. And I find normally when I'm creating, those spaces become very not just all about nature, but also about kind of the built environment and human spaces. So I find that by combining the photographs, paintings, sometimes textiles, that I'm really getting at more of an experience of my surroundings and kind of this human nature relationship that I'm really exploring and don't fully understand yet.
these like subconscious things that are happening in my life or that's happening around in the world. And I also kind of gravitate towards these little like patterns and icons and little things that I like to translate into different mediums. A lot of my work just kind of plays upon this idea of our relationship with the digital world, be it social media, kind of our online personas, all of these things that have shaped our life in the current times.
I really like mimicking patterns that you might see on a walk in the park, because I don't know, I feel like they're not necessarily, like, this might be a weird word to use, but they're not like ergonomic in the sense that they work with the human body, but I think they're ergonomic in terms of like pattern recognition, like something that's kind of ingrained in us.
Just stuff I see on the street. I call it kind of secondary symbolism, where you have like the typical symbolism that we know of, that like is street signs, or like that's like a common reference to somebody and everybody can read it as such. And for example, I see a teddy bear as like a symbol for all stuffed animals, or maybe a symbol for all Texas animals, all the roadkill. And so I kind of use that kind of symbolism, and usually they become patterns and overlapping patterns, where I want to leave a little room for people that see my work to take time and explore the parts that they recognize. And with this, I always try to like get kind of like an awareness of the things that like are around us the whole time and that we don't really notice, because either we're just like on our route to work, or we're like so embedded in that culture that it doesn't seem weird to us anymore.
When I started working with fibers, immediately domesticity kind of oozed in, and things about home and structures around the home and spaces. I'm really interested in like how those things can be really sacred and also kind of ambivalent at the same time.
Yeah, so I started off making those like texture sheet glass, and then I kind of just like saw the resemblance with the sheet glass I was making into the crackly texture of packing peanuts, and I kind of draw into like the natural quality of the packing peanut. They kind of like designed to interlock together, but then like isolated one, it's on itself, it's kind of just like little fragile little thing. And I kind of started off using packing peanuts as like a metaphor of female pride and perseverance, and kind of use that as kind of like some subject I can narrow it on to talk about some larger issues.
I was also thinking through with especially my fiber stuff, having this sense of encroaching, or it's not super harsh, but kind of oh, that's pretty, but oh, maybe it's also a little bit unsettling.
Yeah. Well, I love color, and I feel like my work upon like first encounter feels like very light and fun and airy, but then like I do feel like the message is maybe a little bit more dark, or it's a little bit more like, hey, be like, you have to be aware of your environment, or like
the biggest element of like that's continuous throughout my work is just trying to be a little bit of a mixture of weird and at the same time have like a really grounded conversation about something really real.
It was important to me to have a sustainable art practice. So I started creating stuff with fused plastics, and I just would take tons of plastic bags that would accumulate in our own kitchen And I was like, oh, these bags. And I started researching how to recycle them. And, you know, and here, like in Florida, only like 9% of all of the plastic that's consumed here that people even take back to like our grocery stores to be recycled, only 9% of it actually gets recycled. So I started like fusing these plastics together, like with an iron, and I would just like fuse them and make these sheets of plastic, like a fabric almost, or like a textile roll of fabric that I would just roll up, and I would keep these rolls of plastics. So then I started creating soft sculpture with the plastic and the sculptural stuff, and the balls all were discarded. I found them. The first set that I found were like outside of a school, out of a dumpster. And I took all of them and I cleaned them, and that's when I started creating the soft sculpture with all healing plants, or healing botanicals. Or
the kind of nexus of this like chapter of my practice came from I think it was over one winter break during college. Maybe it was during the summer, but I was helping my mom clean out her closet, and there was just so much raw material. Everything was like wrapped in cellophane from the dry cleaners. She's like kind of a hoarder. Everything was, preserved and like wrapped in layers and layers of plastic. And so she was getting rid of all this stuff, and I just kind of took it back with me to school and was like, okay, this is my raw material for now. This is what I'm going to work with. And so now I've been like, that was probably 3 or 4 years ago now, and I've just been kind of operating within like that parameter of like only using what I can find, which is so annoying and really kind of taxing, but it's nice to have this kind of prompt in place. Like the work just kind of determines itself.
And I know a lot of artists have this, but like you become a hoarder and you just kind of like, you see this thing aside of the road and you're like, oh my God, that's a beautiful piece of metal. And you start like collecting all that shit. And because I moved away from Holland as well, and I like had to get rid of my studio, had to get rid of all this stuff that I was holding on to like maybe make a work out of someday. Now I have kind of more like that focus and kind of found my technique that I really like to work with.
I definitely have a lot of hoarded items. Like that's a thing. My hoarded collection of like random things. My partner's also an artist, so between the two of us, we're just like, what are we doing with this stuff? Like, we'll use it someday, but yeah, boxes of things, paper and weird things we've picked up along the years.
I would say like, because a lot of it is just like found objects, I just have like weird little knickknacks everywhere, or maybe even something that someone would consider trash. So I have a lot of trash piles that I'm trying to like make work.
I have a dead possum in there right now because I was going to cast it in resin. It's in my freezer. It's a little baby. It was so small. I was like, that's perfect. It's going to be whatever, like the base of a lamp, but I haven't quite gotten around to casting it yet.
So my sustainability aspect of my work definitely just came from like, what am I going to do with all this shit?
All those like things you do for art moments are always like, you're like, what the fuck am I doing? And that always sticks with me too.
Having those like breakthrough moments where you've beat yourself down and like been trying to figure out this thing, and then you finally have that like aha moment. One of the latest I can think of was an augmented reality project right before COVID last year. It was for the Essentials Creative Mask Show, and I was working with this like physics template that simulated physics. So when you moved your face, like the things that were attached to it, which I can actually pull it up, the objects attached to it like move with your face in a realistic way. So when I finally figured how to do this, I was like, oh my gosh, I love this. I know how to simulate physics now in a hacky way. But anyway, that was probably one of my most recent moments. But yeah, just in general, like having that aha moment when you finally figured something out that you've like broken yourself from, and then it's here.
Just keep making the work and like have fun. honestly, there's no plan. Like I don't, and it's true, even being like my age, because I've been an artist for so long, you can't plan it. You just do it. You just, every day I wake up and it's my practice and I love what I do. And it's like my job, and it's fun. I love it. So I just get up and I work every day and I create something new or whatever inspires me or what commission I get, or, you know what I mean?
The discipline, like that's the thing that really gets you there. Because, you know, raw talent or things that, you know, you want to find interest in, those, you know, that's sort of like the base level. But in order to really get anywhere, you have to just have the dedication and the work ethic. So like honoring your time and spending time with yourself and focusing on something for longer than a couple of days, basically.
Just like keep making, because I was like, I loved just like applying to things and really putting myself out there. And I think when you do that as an artist, there's a moment where you kind of just linger a little bit and you want to wait for that reassurance. But her advice was always to just keep moving forward and that's what I do today. I just really put myself out there, like everywhere, all the time, nonstop. And you just can't really think about it that much. You just have to keep going and keep making. And, you know, at the same time, it's hard because you want to listen to what people tell you a little bit, to not be sheltered. But yeah, I think that's the best advice I've ever received, is to just keep going, keep going, keep going.
Go with your gut and your inner voice. I think there's a lot of validity to that. I mean, we need to hear from others their opinion and get a different perspective, but at the end of the day, it's your gut. And then also don't be afraid of making not so good work to get to the really interesting work. I think a lot of times I just have to kind of get through that idea that's not as strong, just to get it out of my system and to learn something through it. This is how my process works, and I've seen a lot of others work the same way. And repurposing materials in that sculpture is always interesting. It can have a different life on its own. So yeah, that would be my two things.
I feel like a lot of the recurring advice that I would get in college was that you just really can't get attached to what you're doing, that is such a fatal flaws when you are too afraid to like go back in and work with something again, or if you're so afraid of messing up a painting that you just have to abandon it entirely. It's just like a huge faux pas. And I think that I kind of took that and ran with it, because I have absolutely no sentimentality over my work. I'm constantly just like ripping things up and then like stuffing whatever, like the plastic from an old painting inside of a new sculpture, and it's just like I have no attachment to anything whatsoever. So I guess it goes both ways, but I like to think that art isn't like this big sacred untouchable that once it's done, it can't be recreated or, you know, played with.
Yeah, and that you don't have to be the superstar. I think, yeah, that was never really explained. Like, very few people become these rock star artists, and does that, it doesn't devalue you as an artist if you're not front and center, that you can be kind of the behind the scenes, supporting other artists and still being involved and still making, but not being, the headliner.
I think one of the biggest things, and especially now, which is kind of ironic, since a big influence of the work that I make is the internet, but I would say like make work for yourself, not for the algorithm, right? So like make work that you believe in versus what you know is going to get yourself likes, or make work that really means something versus just feeling the pressure to constantly make and constantly like upload stuff and feel relevant. I think that's a big one just for the times that we're living in right now.
It's really important to like do what you want to do and make what you want to make. And if you feel like it's not being received well, but it's very like close to your heart, and like you like the technique, you like doing it, you like what you're working on, just find the people that do like it. Like, don't like go and change your style to match with what's in current trend, or change your technique to what this famous guy is doing to get more eyes on you, because you are like, if you invent something new, you're going to be the best at it. And if you're not the best at this thing that already exists, you can just as well not do it. So like, just keep on that grind, and keep holding on to like what really truly and purely and honestly inspires you, and just find that scene and find those people and find those collectors that like that, instead of changing yourself.